Welcome to the At Bat Baseball Podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest baseball news in Chicago, as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez. I am with Miles Porter. How are we doing today, man?
Doing good. Feeling good today.
All right, so we're 1 week into the baseball season. It's already been crazy. Had a lot of surprises, not only in Chicago, but around the league. But we'll start off here in Chicago. Of course, the White Sox were in Detroit taking on the Tigers. Now, a couple of notes, a couple of negative notes on that series. Giolito has hit the injured list with left abdomen soreness. AJ Pollock has a tight hamstring. He just went on the injured list today, which I wasn't expecting. They were saying it was going to be a short-term injury thing. Um, but yeah, before we get into the actual series, Miles, honestly, White Sox are giving me Bulls vibes, which as a Chicago sports fan, I mean it's tough,
Yeah.
tough to lay out there for the White Sox. But it's just like I don't know what it is, all right? It's like they're starting to like for me, injuries weren't necessarily a question for the White Sox going into the season,
Yeah.
but seeing this, it's almost like a little bit of the Mets as well too. It was like they gotta be healthy.
Yeah. That's really the big things with the White Sox. And they're still such a deep team. They have like a little bit leeway. Maybe one or two players can go down, they'll still compete. But this is a team that has to stay healthy. They have to stay healthy because the AL Central is going to be tight. It's going to be tough. Yeah, they got to stay very healthy, or other things are going to catch up to them in terms of just trying to finish things out in the long run. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're right that because I mean, when you really think about it, even right now, as you look at the rotation now, a lot of fans are worried. They're like, oh, it's not deep at the moment, obviously, but you
Mhm.
have Kopech and you have Cease. I mean, that's pretty good 1-2 punch. And especially what Cease did over the weekend, and I'll get a little bit more into detail. But anyway, starting off the series in game one, they had a crazy walk off with
Oh my
Baez.
gosh.
Yeah, Baez hitting one off the wall. Now I didn't watch it live, but seeing the replays over and over again, I was like, man, it's pretty obvious. But obviously, in the moment, I think maybe the umpires, they couldn't tell. But I'm glad they
Yeah.
got it right. And also, not to mention the umps being mic'd up is like,
It's cool.
and
That's a cool feature.
yeah,
It's dramatic too.
yeah, it like reminds me of football so much, and just like
Oh yeah.
they're going into detail, and it's just like, oh my god, even like as like a baseball fan at home, I know you appreciate a lot. Obviously, with you have the announcers here at home, but
Mhm.
when you're there, obviously it's one more important. But I do appreciate even being here, just like seeing like or what like the perspective of the umpires and the fan reaction to all that. It was crazy. It was like so I know in some of the games, I think maybe it was Philly. I don't remember where the Phillies game where the umpire like could barely like get the words out because the crowd was cheering so loud. It was legit.
Yeah.
It sounded like they were in Denver or something for a Broncos game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so then that game was crazy. And then in game two, Dylan Cease went off. I mean,
Mhm.
that guy's nasty. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I underrated that guy a lot going into this season. Like having conversations with other people, like,
Mhm.
and the thing is like when the Cubs got rid of him, I was like, this guy's gonna be an ace. And then like over the course of the years, like I'm just watching him on the White Sox. He has the stuff, but I wasn't like really like saying thinking he's gonna be an all star or he's gonna be this and that.
Yeah.
But honestly, after that star man, like I saw that he had like pretty decent odds for AL Cy Young, and I'm not kidding. Like before the season, I was like, really? Like they're gonna put him that high? Because but look, he's got it for sure.
In terms of like a couple of his quality starts that I've seen him have in the past, I'm not too surprised when it comes to the great start that he's had on the mound. You know, I really still think that he's someone who's not talked about enough. But this year he will be talked about more if he continues his success and continues pounding the strike zone, dominating hitters, keeping everybody off bounds. Yeah, I always saw these little glimpses in him with other starts in the past, but this year I'm hoping more things come to light.
Oh yeah, I mean, like that's in the way like I probably saw him. I ranked him maybe like a three on a good team. Like at
Yeah.
first, like but like in the past, but I mean, yeah, no. Seeing this, I'm like, yeah, and I saw a stat too that was nasty. I had a buddy of mine, Lupe Rocha. He hooks it up with a lot of stats, and he was telling me that Dylan Cease was second in the majors in whiff rate at 50%, and according to Baseball Savant. Now, also, I know that doesn't really always translate to being an elite pitcher, but the fact that you have swing and miss stuff is
Yeah.
already a big piece of a big puzzle.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Hitters aren't really touching you. They're not touching you 50% of the time. It's already hard enough to hit a baseball. It's already hard enough to put a ball in play, to make something happen. If you're getting a 50% whiff rate, that success alone is going to take you so far. Just in general of just being successful on the mound. Just hitters they're already going to go up there with some sort of preconceived notion where it's like, okay, he might get a few past me. The most that I could do is just try to put the ball in play. It takes the confidence away from a hitter. So I love that edge. I love that stat for him, and what he does is it's great.
No, yeah, I feel like that. I never really thought about it from that perspective, in the sense that, like, yeah, you go up there and you're like, man, I'm going up against a guy who has a high swing rate.
Yeah,
I just gotta make
yeah,
contact at that point.
yeah,
like,
exactly,
like
exactly.
you're not even worried. You're not even thinking like, man, I gotta hit his curveball. I gotta hit his fastball. Like, you're like, damn, I just gotta make some contact. Like,
Yeah, let me just put it in
so
play. Gosh,
yeah,
ground
exactly,
ball to the second
exactly.
baseman, something. Jeez.
Which as a pitcher, I feel like would be pretty badass to have a guy thinking that already before he even steps to the
Yeah,
mound.
absolutely.
And then also another thing was Andrew Vaughn had a big series.
Yeah,
He had 2 home runs, 6 RBI in that series. And one of the things too that's I wanted to touch on was Andrew Vaughn may still be part of that Frankie Montas deal that supposedly is brewing. It was reported last night.
yeah,
A reporter from Univision, he was saying that that the A's and the White Sox were close to a deal for Frankie Montas, and which would be huge. Not only for now, obviously, right now it would be, a big deal for the White Sox, but for the future. I mean, I think they have him for 2 years.
yeah,
A lot of excuse me, one of the main reasons the White Sox don't want to give up on him is because they have him for 5 years. But in my opinion, I don't know what you think. So my opinion, I think it's worth it, because if you're the White Sox and you want to go for the World Series, like in the next two, I think you want to win in the next 2 years. I don't think you're seeing Andrew Vaughn and saying like, oh, it's fine if we don't win this year or next year. Like, we'll win in the next 5 years with Andrew Vaughn. Like, no, I think you guys want to win with Frankie Montas. You want to get a guy you need now. The hitting, I think they're fine, but seeing how the starting pitching is already taking a hit with injuries, I feel Frankie Montas would be enormous.
yeah. I share that sentiment as well. I really like the success that Vaughn has had, specifically, in these first few games, that first series. But in terms of just having arms right now, I really do think the Sox need to, step it up just a little bit, because they are a little bit shorthanded at the moment. So, like you said, in terms of trying to get something going in the next 2 years, because each year a team like the White Sox doesn't make it to the World Series. That's one step closer to a rebuild, which for them is not for a while. It's not going to be for years down the line. But at some point it is going to get to a little bit of like the now or never mentality. So as much as I like Andrew Vaughn, I think he's great in the DH spot. I think it's good, bringing Frankie Montas, and kind of just give more depth to this pitching staff. So because offensively, they're fine.
Yeah, no, that's what I was talking to one of my buddies, who's a White Sox fan, and he was saying, like, I just don't know if it's worth it. He had the whole PD thing Frankie Montas had, but like,
Right.
I mean, the odds of him, I mean, you would hope, obviously, the odds of him doing something like that again is very, very slim. Not
Yeah.
to mention, not to mention Andrew Vaughn. Like, yeah, like I said, he's good, but it sounds mean, but you don't really need him compared to the guys you have. Like, it's just you
Yeah.
guys are already stacked offensively.
Right.
Um,
Already very deep.
Exactly. But the White Sox in general made a good statement, made a little statement at the beginning of the season towards the Tigers, showing them who's boss of the Central. I think the Tigers are up and coming, but it was a nice way of saying, hey, you guys are still a year or two away. Like,
Yeah.
Spencer Torkelson, chill out. Like, we got the
Hmm.
division this year for sure.
Yeah. Let them know. Let them know.
Exactly. And then now this week they have some really interesting series. They have the Mariners today, starting today, their
Mhm.
home opener, and then they face the Rays in a 3-game series over the weekend. Yeah, what do you think we can expect from those series starting today with the Mariners?
I still believe, you know for some reason every time I'm watching the Mariners come to town, it's always a great series. It's always a very competitive game. You know, I believe the Sox are going to win this series. I just believe that they're the better team. But the Mariners historically have given the White Sox a hard time at home. So in terms of when Tampa Bay comes to town, that's going to be something much different. Now you have a little bit more of an even match going forward. But I look at this series coming up with Seattle. I don't see any reason why the White Sox will not dominate this team. The Mariners are still very young. They're very good at competing. Like I said in the first show, they might be able to surprise some people. Maybe I just don't think they're there yet against a team like the White Sox, who's young, but they're kind of seasoned. They're becoming more mature each year. I just see the White Sox taking over that series, and then when Tampa Bay comes to town, we'll see.
Yeah, with Seattle, obviously this weekend, I mean, watch a ton of baseball. Like, I mean, not that I, in a regular day in June, I don't watch a lot of baseball, but I was watching every game and watching the Mariners play. The thing with them was they have a great lineup, and they re-signed J.P. Crawford, which was nice to see there.
Yeah, yeah.
He's one of their leaders, and the thing with them is I feel like they're going into the season. I was like, man, they got Robbie Ray, and they have
Hmm.
um, the some nice additions to the lineup. But when I really looked into them and I saw I was like, oh, they got Robbie Ray, but then who else? Like
Yeah,
Flexen hasn't really done much, at least to prove, to me that he could be a two, which is technically I think what he's listed at on them on their
yeah,
Roto Champ. Like I know, also Marco Gonzalez has shown some good signs over the years, but again, on a good team he might be a four. So I just think
yeah.
they probably, if they compete and they're competing by July, they're definitely going to need a starter or two. Their bullpen also, you could argue,
Yes,
needs
yeah,
needs some needs some help too. So really, it's just pitching for them. But it's it is what it is. I think as a Mariner fan, you're hoping for something positive to happen this year. But if it doesn't, I don't think it's a big deal. You have young talent in general. Julio Rodriguez looks pretty
yeah,
good though. I mean, that guy looks like a beast in the
yeah,
box. So,
yeah.
and then when the White Sox face the Rays, I mean that's like, yeah, it's always like those type of teams going at it. Like that's literally a playoff series. So it'll be cool. And then that one of those games will be on Apple TV Plus. And I will say, um,
Sweet.
yeah, no, the Apple TV Plus. I will say this, and we were talking about it before, Miles. Is the Apple TV Plus is pretty cool, man. I mean, they have a lot of cool features, which I honestly I did not expect. I thought it was gonna be maybe like they were gonna use someone else's telecast, like MLB Network or something on there. But
Right.
yeah, so one of the cool things I saw in that, because I know a lot of people were complaining about it, so I'm like, honestly, I like it. I think a lot of people were complaining that they were like, um, that it's like baseball behind a paywall, but at the same time is like, if you're watching games on ESPN and TBS, technically that's not a paywall. Not everyone can afford cable, so
Right.
it's kind of the
Exactly.
same thing. But like one of the cool things about Apple TV Plus is like on walk up songs, they'll have like the song at the bottom, like it'll pop up like the Apple Music, the logo pops up, and then
Oh,
the
that's
the
lit.
so-
That's
the
awesome.
song. I know. I was like, dude, like that's like it's so awesome. Like and then they had like I believe you can listen to each player's or each team's playlist, and they have them all their walk up songs on there, which I thought was badass. So I'm interested to see, and it was cool watching it from I think it was the
So cool.
Mets Nationals for game one, and the second game was Angels
Yeah,
Astros. So it was cool to see it from from other cities, but it's gonna be pretty cool to see it here for White Sox Rays. For
that's
the
awesome. I
Cubs
love that.
now, yeah. So they played the Brewers, and it was supposed to be a 4 game series. But of course, one got
Hmm.
rained out because, of course, Chicago. And
Yeah,
I thought the first one was going to be postponed, honestly. But seeing now the second one, I was like, makes sense. It is what it is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they won the series 2 games out of one, which a lot of people were surprised. What just like off the top, like what did you think overall about the Cubs Brewers series?
In terms of watching, the Chicago Cubs play right now, they are playing to prove something. This isn't a team that I'm looking at that is kind of like accepting a rebuild, more so of like, hey, we're here, we're gonna disrupt some other teams. Um, I'm I love saying Suzuki. I love just his personality, how he displays with so much fun. He's just a very easygoing guy. Ian Happ, what an amazing start that he's off to. Unfortunate that he got a little bit banged up, but he's okay. There's no damage with that. But this is a team that is not accepting a mediocre season. this is a team that I'm watching, and they're like, if we go out, we're gonna go out strong. We're gonna go out and maybe take a few other teams with us. Love seeing Marcus Stroman on the mound the other day, the energy that he was pitching with, how he was connecting with the crowd and everything. It's just, this is the team that is here to play, and they're not going to take any crap from anyone who comes in Wrigley or wherever they go.
No, yeah, and speaking of that, there was a brawl, or a little
Yep.
bit of, not necessarily a brawl, but more of a benches clearing incident, and it was a
Mhm.
lot. It had a lot to do with everyone getting hit, and Wilson, especially in particular, Wilson Contreras. It's like I saw a stat where it was like the top two teams that have hit each other are the Cubs and the Brewers. The Brewers
Yeah.
have hit each other more than the Cubs have hit them, and then vice versa. Cubs are second, and then it's funny
Yeah.
because the Cubs are involved with I think the third one, where's Cubs and Cardinals. So the NL Central, they just love hitting each other for some reason. But and it's the thing, like I had plenty of conversations this weekend about, oh, like, why are they hitting Wilson? Like, why do they keep hitting
Hmm.
Wilson? Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? I mean, they're just trying to pitch inside, but
Yeah.
it just keep yeah. But it's like after, but I as a player, I'm sure you can understand more is the fact that, yeah, you're probably like, dude, enough of this crap, right? It's like,
Yeah.
enough. Like it doesn't matter if you can't pitch inside, then don't pitch at all. I think that's probably what the Cubs players are thinking to themselves, right?
Yeah. At some point, it's just like, what are we doing? What are you actually doing? And the different variety of pitchers that have hit Wilson. This isn't one guy who's constantly plunking him. Well, Wilson does struggle with an inside pitch. Everybody in the MLB pretty much knows that. If you look at a lot of Wilson Contreras, it's like solid base hits. It's a pitch down the middle or up and away or low and away. Anything close to his body, he struggles a little bit. That's okay. But in terms of a team that's constantly trying to pitch towards that weakness, but not executing it and hitting you in the process, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating when guys are throwing 92 plus and you're getting plunked in the elbow, plunked in the back or the arm. It gets frustrating. It gets really annoying after a while. And eventually, and you even saw it last year as well, uh, you, Wilson is a very fiery player. And I think even still to this point, he's kept a pretty cool head about it. Hasn't really charged them out. He just said his piece on certain things. It gets annoying. It gets really annoying. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, if you guys cannot pitch inside, don't go there. Find another solution. Because if you keep plunking me, eventually there's going to be retaliation for it, and you got to deal with it.
Hmm.
You got to deal with those consequences. And at the end of the day, as baseball players, we don't want that. We don't want to go there. But we got to stick up for our guys. And if one team or one side isn't understanding the point, you got to let them know.
Yeah, and I think the one, if I not necessarily have a problem with it, but I think in the way that the Cubs approached it was just the fact that Keegan like didn't go right away to McCutcheon, right? It's
Yeah.
and I wanted to get, yeah, your take on it, is like the fact
Mhm.
that from an outsider looking in and seeing that as a non-player, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I mean, I think it does seem a little like weird that they wouldn't just go straight at McCutcheon and hit him. Like, and again, I also feel bad for McCutcheon because he's not even a part of this series really. This is just his first go around with Cubs Brewers. He's been in the Central
Yeah.
before, but it's been a while. So it's
Yeah.
tough that it had to be him, and it's tough.
Yeah.
You could argue that it's tough that it had to be Keegan Thompson, a young guy
Yeah.
still. I think he's like a second or third season. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, what do you think about the way the Cubs handled it? Could they have handled it better?
Maybe. I think because of how many times this has happened, maybe to a certain extent, they were like, you know what, we are tired of it. We're just gonna make it obvious. We're trying to plunk you because you've hit our guy. God knows how many times consecutively. It's time for a little bit of something back, a little bit of an eye for an eye. I don't think they're trying to hide it. Uh, are they wrong for that? I think so. I think so. Um, it maybe if you get McCutcheon 1-2, or if you get him 0-2, you get him in the pitchers count. Um, but I think for the most part, it just this isn't something that you ever want to see. If I'm the Cubs, if I'm David Ross, at least I'm saying, hey, at least try to get him 0-2, at least try to get a couple of strikes on him. Try to put yourself in the driver's seat before plunking him, and maybe make it a little bit less obvious.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I never thought about that from that in that way too. Is that they wanted to make a point of like, we're trying to hit you, that when I hit you, it's not gonna be it's not an accident. You're not gonna wonder, oh,
Exactly.
did
Yeah.
it slip or something? No, no, no. We meant to hit you.
No.
So it's a
Yeah.
good point. I never thought about that. And yeah, it's like as much as we don't want to see anyone get hit. It's definitely always a game of chess when it comes to hit by pitches in baseball, especially when two teams don't like each other. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
well,
touchy.
when it comes to baseball of that series, like we said, the Cubs won 2 out of 3, and
Hmm.
the Cubs look good. I mean, they had that shutout in Game 2 where they had 4 homegrown pitchers contribute to the shutout. It was Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson, Scott Efros, and Ethan Roberts. So as a team that's or as a fan that's watched the Cubs for years, having them have homegrown pitching is like mind blowing. If you would have told me this like 5 years ago, I'd be like, you're lying. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
how'd you feel about that?
I'm loving watching these guys go out there and get more acclimated with the Cubs, with the fan base at the MLB level. I love seeing Ethan Roberts, have his moment when they won 9-0. I thought that was beautiful. Um, I love it. I'm loving just kind of seeing this team start to re-blossom. We this is a very different team from last year at this time. I think a lot of what has happened is that this kind of new group that we have, they've all come together. They've come together a little bit more, and I think a lot of that was, hey, we still got something to prove. We still got baseball to play. So seeing these young guys on the mound, really, really just get their feet wet. First series at Wrigley, a little bit cold. You got the Brewers in town. You get a sense of this rivalry that is very deep, that goes back many years. I love it. I absolutely love it. And just like someone would have told me that we would have had young pitching coming up, and a few more young pitchers to come. I would have looked at you and said, "You're crazy."
Yeah, no, and it's cool also to see that the fact that this is just the beginning because you still
Yeah,
have guys
yeah,
like Braylon Marquez, coming up. He's had a little bit of
yeah.
an injury bug hit him the past couple of
Mhm,
years, and Cole Franklin, of course, that people were talking a lot before the season. He's throwing
yeah,
gas, so it is cool to see that. I mean, they definitely have needed that over the years, and it's cool that it's coming. That it looks, you could argue that it could be the main pieces of the next great Cubs team might be pitchers.
yeah.
So it's cool to see something a little different. And yeah, you
I'd
touched
love
on
to
a
see
little bit.
Albert
Oh,
also
good.
might come back up and along with
Yeah.
Manuel Rodriguez as well.
Oh yeah. I was kind of surprised that Manuel Rodriguez didn't make the bullpen starting out unless I missed it and he was on the injured list or something. But because yeah, that guy throws absolute gas.
Oh, dude, those rockets.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and also you touched on it a little bit about Seiya Suzuki, and yeah, man. I mean, it's his at bats are so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it reminds me a little bit of Shohei and it reminds me a little bit of Fukudome in the fact that patience and that's Japanese hitters, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like the
Hmm.
patience that they have, the vision that they have. It's like coming from a baseball fan here in America. It's crazy to see some players like that, especially being like a Cubs fan. The fact that we've had so many teams that strike out so much. Um,
Hmm.
to see a player that patient, and it looks like it. I mean, you could argue maybe unless this was a strategy in general, but the Cubs have seemed way more patient over the past, the first few games, I should say, just 3 games, but they
Absolutely.
have seemed very patient, and especially against the elite pitching of the Brewers, which is nice
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. This is a team that's not doing a lot of chasing. Even at that close loss on Sunday, this is a team that wasn't, we're striking out, but from my vantage point as a player, we're not striking out on terrible pitches. We're striking out on good pitches. Uh, you know, Nico ending the game the other day on a pitch low and in. That was just a good pitch by Hader. That was it. But I'm loving not seeing this team not chase pitches that are, for the pitcher. So just that kind of goes into kind of what we were saying earlier, that this team, they're starting to blossom, they're starting to grow more. Nico Horner is not one of the newer player on the Cubs anymore. He's not one of the newer players anymore. So seeing him mature as well slowly is just kind of something very fun to see and leaves you very optimistic as a fan of this team. I don't think the Cubs are gonna, be like this much longer. I think eventually a year or two now, just from these little things that we're doing as a team, God only knows. We only know
Yeah,
what's going to happen. It's going to be incredible.
yeah, it is definitely nice to see with those guys. And also I will say this too, the from an early perspective, of course, anything can happen, but the bullpen it just seems to be a little shaky at least through the first 3 games in the sense of
Yeah.
when we're talking about guys like Jesse Chavez and Daniel Norris. Now the young guys, they
Yeah.
impressed, but yeah, and the same with Chris Martin as well. Like these guys impressed, but you kind of wonder if, let's say, the Cubs are competitive and they stay competitive for the first half of the season, they
Yeah.
probably are going to go get some bullpen arms as well, right?
Yeah. It's really one star for Jesse Chavez. And look at him. Same thing for Daniel Norris. I mean, he's had 2 starts, but definitely if this team is competing, and this is something that they want to continue throughout the rest of the season, you definitely want to go out and get some arms. Jesse Chavez isn't exactly a younger player anymore, but you can still ship him and maybe get something decent in return. If this team is going to compete, and these pitchers are still kind of struggling, I would definitely try to go out and get more arms to make something exciting happen down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think also what I find interesting with that is Jesse Chavez has been here before. He's been there, done
Yeah,
that. So it is. I'm sure in the sense of being a leader, he's brought a lot. Um,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, and you're right. It's just one appearance. But you
Mhm.
hope, yeah, you hope that he's able to reclaim that role that he had back in the day with the Cubs in 2018, where he was
Right.
very dependable out of the pen.
Right.
Um, this coming week, the Cubs, starting today, they have the Pirates for a 2-game series, and then they have a 4-game series at Colorado. So yeah, with the Pirates, I mean, we know who the Pirates are, and
Mhm.
on the bright spot for them, before we get into the negativity for them, is they re-signed their starting infielder Key Brian Hayes. Now it was
Yeah.
tough after a couple, after I think it was maybe a day or two after he signed a contract, he got injured. So it's and it might have been actually the same day, which makes it even worse too. But
Yeah.
that guy's a stud, and he's definitely hit the Cubs, well in his short career. But yeah,
Yeah.
we know who the Pirates are. We know where they're going to finish in the division. Them and the
Mhm.
Reds, really. Um, so yeah, I think that first series for sure is a nice little, like, you know if the Cubs can get a couple wins there or just split in general will be nice. And then because going to Colorado is going to be interesting. What do you think about those two series?
Yeah. Very interesting. This is. I think the Pirates are a little bit similar to the Cubs in the fact that they are a team that is going to be on the come up in a few years. Love Key Brian Hayes. I think he is such a solid hitter. I think he's an incredible third baseman. And I kind of look at this. I look at this roster, and this isn't a roster, in my opinion, that's going to compete or really strike any fear in some team's eye. But I look at a player like Michael Chavis, someone who I think is gonna have a good year for them. I think he's really gonna enjoy the whole Cubs White Sox Cubs Pirates dynamic. But more than anything, I expect the Cubs to win this series. I'm really not looking at anyone in this lineup or on this roster that really strikes any fear in my heart if I'm a pitcher, aside from Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds. So really, I think that series is a good, maybe get two out of that one. And then so with Colorado, that's interesting because this is a team that's not supposed to compete at all this year. This is a team that they signed Chris Bryant. I think they kind of want to build around KB a little bit. So I'd be very surprised if the Cubs don't win that series. Uh, but it is Colorado. It is an elevated stadium. The ball travels there a little bit different than other places.
Hmm.
So it'll be I don't know. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think with the Rockies, they also re-signed Ryan McMahon. So they have a couple
Yeah,
pieces they want
yeah,
to start building around. But yeah, I think before the season, it definitely was interesting to see, the fact that they signed Chris Bryant. They never expected Chris Bryant to, play for the Rockies, at least for, for what they plan on it. But also
yeah,
when you look at the contract, I think he's got a couple of opt-outs, maybe I think after the second year or third year or something like that. So
yeah,
a lot of a
yeah,
lot of people think that I've heard that he might just either get traded, and like ask for out, for them, because obviously by if that they don't look like they're going to compete maybe even next year or the year after that. It doesn't look like it, at least.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
so by his age, he might want to leave, try to chase a ring again. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting for sure. Nice for them to have. I mean, we know what a player Chris Bryant is for sure.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, and then also when you go to play against the Rockies, it's you. Yeah, you really don't know with the conditions there. You don't know what to expect. I always feel like the Cubs always
Right.
come out with like losing a series out of there just because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what team the Cubs put out there. It doesn't matter what team the Rockies put out there. It's always tough.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so that does it for Chicago baseball. Let's go around the league a little bit and see what other stuff happened over the weekend. So with Pitchcom, I thought one of the things I did want to talk about and find interesting is it looks really cool, and also just the fact that um, I actually did not know that it was gonna be something in your hat that was gonna read
Right.
the
I didn't know that either.
yeah. I thought it was gonna be more of like either an earpiece or something that vibrates on your hand or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
But it really is cool. To be honest, I don't understand why some teams wouldn't use it, but maybe it's maybe I also think that maybe it's so new that maybe you don't even like if your team maybe wants to ease into it, maybe not even start this year, but maybe like next year in spring
Right.
training if they didn't have it. Because I don't remember the Cubs having it even in spring training. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, like I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, man, why wouldn't you use this? But you know what? I also thought also with because Victor Caratini, who's on the Brewers, who's new on the
Mhm.
Brewers, the
Yep.
Padres weren't using it in their spring training, and he used it here for the first time. And
Yeah.
there was you saw that right? It was like the first two innings. I think there was like they were using almost all of their mound visits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting to see when other players that haven't used it and then use it again. What are your overall thoughts on PitchCom?
I'm curious to see really how it like unfolds and develops over the years. What's going to change with this? Because, like we said, not every team is using this. Um, like the Cubs, for example, haven't bought into it yet. Uh, but for players who aren't accustomed to that, and they're trying to relay certain signs, I wonder how different it is now from how it is going to be even at the end of the season. I would say for me, just because I'm not at that point, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to maneuver that. So I can only imagine for catchers like Victor Caratini, or for some reason the Cubs started taking it. Wilson, behind the plate. I'm curious as to how is this going to change the game plan, or is it going to improve it for some players, or for guys who don't want any technology? Because there are players who are like, no, just look at me and give me the sign, and I'm going to relay it to him, or whatever. I'll call the game from back here. You sit back in the dugout. It's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting dynamic that we're going to see take place, and maybe for certain teams that haven't picked it up, it might be they kind of like the old fashioned way of going about certain things. So I look forward to just seeing how different it is even going to be at the end of this season, maybe even by the All Star break.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting for sure to see how some teams transition into it, or yeah, don't transition to it at all. Another
Yeah.
thing that happened over the weekend was Jose Ramirez got re-signed, 5 years, $124 million. Very
Right.
interesting deal. Very interesting because, honestly, I thought Jose Ramirez was a goner. I think he was going to go maybe to like Toronto or just somewhere else in general, maybe even the White Sox. But
Yep.
the reason I find that interesting is because as much as I know the Guardians have plenty of pitching, they have the
Mhm.
pieces there, but I just don't know if Ramirez would be there for the next time they win. So I did find that interesting. Also, another thing is the money. I think he's worth way more than that, so I'm surprised he didn't try to
Yeah.
test the market out. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I think so. Jose Ramirez, I think he's just such a great fit in Cleveland when this comes to his overall, his relationship with the fans, other players around him. I look at him as a very solid third baseman. Uh, you know, I think the Guardians knew exactly what they were getting out of this. This is a player that if I'm the GM, I kind of want to keep him around as well. Have younger guys around him, have him lead this team. Uh, the Guardians are a team that they haven't had a lot of great luck over the past few years, and I really think dating back to the World Series, it's been a pretty big downhill trend for them, just in terms of just how far are they really making it in the playoffs, or struggling to even get back there. I really like Jose Ramirez sticking around in Cleveland, just because I really do believe that is a good centerpiece for this team to develop around some more or add to.
Yeah, no, and you're yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Jose Ramirez, I think is you could even argue is underrated. Like I think
Oh
people
yeah, absolutely.
because obviously he had that off year. I think it was like 2019, I believe it was, but
Yeah,
I think that kind of you know made people forget who he was, and he is
yeah,
an elite player on both sides of the ball. So that's
yeah.
definitely yeah. If I'm a Guardians fan, man, I'm happy as hell that I got to keep that guy for sure.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
another thing that happened too was Austin Meadows got traded to Detroit. So I
Yeah,
thought that was an interesting trade just because of the fact that one, if the usually with the Rays, if they're getting rid of a guy, it's because it's for a reason, like a very analytic reason. If they're
yeah.
bringing a guy in, it's for a good reason too. Like I think they made a deal with the Cubs for Harold Ramirez
Yep.
that I'm to be honest, I wasn't that familiar with him. And then he was like, and then
Yeah.
he was hitting. Then he was playing with them on Friday or Saturday. I think he was batting third. So,
Yeah.
so, so,
Yeah.
with the Rays, you never know what they're trying to do. But definitely with Austin Meadows, very surprised that he went to Detroit. But it's a hell of a pickup for Detroit.
Yeah, he's also having a very solid season offensively. I mean, granted, he's only had 13 at bats as I'm looking at his stats right now. I like this. I'm kind of looking at Detroit like I think they're trying to compete this year. I think they're starting to put together the pieces of being a team that's gonna kind of give other teams in the Central a hard time. So I really like Austin Meadows to this team. Also a very solid outfielder. I love him in left field. I know he can play every position in the outfield. So when I'm looking at the Tigers, I think the Tigers are kind of starting to make a run for it. I think kind of they're trying to make this statement of, hey, we want to compete too. We're gonna get ourselves in there and maybe add a few more arms in that bullpen in that rotation. I think the Tigers are right there.
No, yeah, it's definitely a good move. Very optimistic move for them for sure. So hopefully they
Yeah,
keep it going.
yeah.
And then also, we were talking a little bit about it before, and Garrett Cole had a tough start. Great series in New York though with
Oh
Boston
my
and
gosh, what a way to
right.
start it.
Yeah, it was a great series. But I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I picked Garrett Cole, for the Cy Young. I was like, man, I want to
Yeah, I
see him,
did too.
I want to see him, not give up a run. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was tough. It was like, as I was saying before, is with Garrett Cole, you almost expect him to like give up, one run, two runs, just because he's that good. So like
Mhm.
three runs for him could be, considered a rough start. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he definitely. I would think most of those runs were in the first inning, so he was able to settle in. But yeah, no, a great series over there in Boston, New York, especially in Sunday
Mhm.
Night Baseball with whole Kike mic'd up thing. Which, to be honest,
Oh gosh.
for a long time, and again, you probably know more as a player. Is I was kind of like, man, like mic'd up players during a game that matters is a little questionable, but everyone liked it, and the fact that the strategy came into play and Kike did exactly what he wanted to do, what he said he was going to do.
Mhm.
From a
Mhm.
player perspective, like what do you think about being mic'd up during the game?
I would love it. Me personally, I would love it. I think, it's obviously not for every player. And it's a little bit different from spring training to the regular season. Spring training, a little bit more relaxed, but when you get to the regular season, I do believe there are more players that are not going to want to do it. But I love it. I love it. You're hearing his thoughts during the game uh, from sitting at home. Something that if you're a fan watching it at home and you're seeing certain plays, you're kind of wondering why did he make that decision or what's going through his head, or thinking to yourself, okay, maybe that wasn't that hard, or he could have made a different decision. But when you hear them kind of break down the different scenarios in their head, like Kike did, like prior to making that play, so cool. I am all for it. I hope they continue to find at least one player each game on a Sunday night going forward to find and mic up, because you learn a lot. You learn a lot from hearing these players talk. And I'll say for me as a ball player, so much of what I've learned from other pro guys just by talking to them, just the conversation of what are they going to do in the situation, or asking them about little scenarios that happened in the past and what they're going to do next. It's really interesting. It really helps give the fans an understanding of what's going through that player's mind and how is he reacting to it and what is his strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the coolest parts about, like, for example, like the NBA
Yeah,
and the NFL is that it seems like there's microphones everywhere, so you hear a lot of what's going on. Whether
yeah,
even if it's not during the game, you have NFL All Access, like you hear it after and stuff like that, the mic'd up sessions and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's cool for baseball to have something a little bit like that, and to just get the fans a little more involved into like what the strategy of the game as it happens.
Yeah.
So another thing too that we talked a little bit about the games on Apple TV Plus, but I will say this that the bench is cleared for the Mets and Nationals,
Woo.
and it was
Yeah.
yeah, and it was interesting to see excuse me, it was interesting to see Buck Showalter's reaction with his first time in a situation like this. I mean, we know the type of manager Buck Showalter is, that person Buck Showalter is.
Yeah.
But yeah, to see it live and to see him, it looked like he was. It looked like he was coming at Steve Cishek's head.
Oh yeah, he was ready. He wanted all the smoke. he, he wanted all of it. Hey, as a player for me, I love seeing my coach, my manager, stick up for me. I've had coaches in the past who just sit in the dugout. Not gonna say any names, but it's great to see that. And Buck has been around for a while, so his old school kind of style and his passion for his players runs very deep in for him. So to see him run out there and stick up for Lindor, I mean, good. But also, I don't think Cishek meant to do that.
No, yeah, definitely. Like especially in the fact that he got hit in the face. I mean, to
Yeah,
preface what happened, I mean, Pete Alonso got hit. I believe maybe one other guy got hit from the Mets in general,
yeah,
but same with the Nationals. But yeah, Pete Alonso got hit in the face. Also got hit like
yeah.
in the mask area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so at least nobody got intensely hurt. But yeah, no,
Thank
it was
goodness.
definitely interesting to see the reactions of everyone, especially it being like the first or second game of the season for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and then also another thing too was Rob Manfred gifting players headphones along with the letter after trying to repair the relations with the Players Association after that shaky CBA. It's something, uh, but it definitely was something that was interesting because like of the fact that you could have done anything, you know, and he chose headphones. Just interesting to me.
This man has made so many mistakes as commissioner. I don't think headphones. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. It's nice. It's a kind gesture. This isn't gonna fix anything. You gave everyone headphones. That's it. This, okay. I'm not even gonna start to list off the things that Manfred has done that have not only his fault. There are issues on the players' end as well. Um, Headphones. I just very kind gesture. I hope his heart is really coming from like a genuine place. This isn't gonna repair much, but it is. I like the it's the effort that counts. There you go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you are 100% right. Like, yeah, we could probably have a whole separate podcast talking about Manfred, all the stuff
Oh
Manfred has
oh
done
gosh.
wrong or just the questionable things he's done. And yeah, it is true. At least it's something. Like it's definitely uh uh something to be appreciated, better than nothing type of thing, right? It's
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, great week, first week of baseball. Definitely a lot of stuff happened, and we hope a lot of stuff continues to happen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Keep it
and
going.
yeah, definitely. And what more could we want than winning records on the south side and north side? So,
Yeah.
uh, uh, unless Miles, you had anything else to say?
No, I'm excited, man. That's a great start to baseball. Everything from the drama to the success to opening day with the Sox and Tigers. We already got drama on the first day. That's awesome. I think the tone has been set. I'm looking around at these stadiums on their first weeks, and a lot of these places are getting filled up, and it's just beautiful, man. It's beautiful to see baseball back and striving. And I really think I think baseball's gonna be put back on the map this year because the entertainment value, these players, they understand that they're performing. So I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see how this whole season plays out with every team. And I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. It's nice to know that this is just the beginning. There's so many
Yeah,
more
oh my
weeks to go
gosh.
of baseball. So yeah, and I just want to thank everyone who listens to the podcast. Share it up, like us, subscribe, and definitely follow us on all social media platforms as well. This was the At Bat Baseball Podcast, episode 2 for Saul Rodriguez, Miles Porter. Have a great one, everyone.